Imagine you're just scrolling through your news feed on the morning of June 7th, 2026.
Right, just a normal Sunday morning.
Exactly. And you see this huge headline that Chicago sports icon Stacey King has suddenly passed away. He was 59.
Such a shock to the city.
Unbelievable shock. But here's where it gets weird. You click one link, and you read that he died from a tragic, serious fall at his home. But then you click another link, maybe from a different outlet, and the article states emphatically that no cause of death has been given.
Two completely different stories.
Right. Depending on which algorithm served you which link, you were handed two entirely different realities.
Which is wild.
It is. How does half the internet confidently agree on a medical diagnosis that, according to traditional journalistic outlets, literally did not exist yet?
It's a fascinating question, and it really reveals the mechanics of how information is just processed and packaged today.
Yeah.
Our mission with this deep dive is to, act as investigators. We're looking at a massive stack of source material surrounding King's death.
We've got obituaries, Wikipedia entries, sports blogs.
Right, and even live broadcast transcripts. We want to understand not just what happened, but how the media ecosystem manufactures a cohesive narrative out of chaotic reality.
Yeah, we aren't here to just read a eulogy. We're looking at how an icon's entire life and death are processed for public consumption.
Exactly.
And the discrepancies in the immediate reporting of his death are just jarring. Let's look at the actual sources we have. Major traditional outlets like TSN, CBS, and Sports Media Watch, they held a very firm line.
They did.
Their reporting explicitly stated, quote, no cause of death was given.
Which is standard, rigorous procedure, right? Those organizations are institutionally mandated to wait for empirical evidence.
Like a coroner's report.
Right. A statement from a medical examiner or a formal release from the Chicago Bulls organization, even direct confirmation from the family.
Yeah.
They report the absence of information rather than, filling the void with speculation.
But the digital aggregating sites took a completely different path.
Completely.
Sources like The Spun, Essentially Sports, and Instantly, his Wikipedia page confidently reported he died after a serious fall at his home.
Yep.
So we traced this fall narrative back through all the documents to find the official medical report.
Yeah.
There wasn't one. The entire narrative originated from a single social media post.
Oh.
Yeah, a post by ESPN 1000 radio host David Kaplan.
This is the exact seam in the narrative we need to pull apart. Because what you're seeing in these documents is the underlying mechanism of the digital media economy.
Right.
It's an ecosystem built on algorithmic rewards where speed is prioritized over verification.
Always.
One grief-stricken tweet from an insider was instantly stripped of its context, ingested by digital aggregators, and canonized as the definitive medical truth across all these platforms.
But, wait, hold on. Let me push back on this idea that the aggregators were entirely out of line here.
Okay, go ahead.
David Kaplan isn't just some random guy on the internet.
No, he's not.
He's a deeply connected Chicago sports insider who worked directly alongside King. In the insular world of professional sports, isn't an insider's word essentially as good as a press release?
No.
If he's in the locker room and talking to the people involved, why shouldn't outlets treat his word as reality? Aren't we holding sports blogs to an impossibly pedantic standard?
I hear you, but proximity does not equal empirical fact.
Fair.
Yes, Kaplan is a highly credible insider. But when platforms present a single tweet as a definitive medical conclusion to millions of readers, they are bypassing the crucial verification step that separates journalism from rumor.
They're outsourcing the fact-checking to one guy?
Exactly. They rely on trust in a single individual rather than institutional verification. And the reason they do this is purely economic.
Right, it's about clicks.
In the attention economy, the first outlet to publish a specific search-friendly detail like a cause of death captures the vast majority of the search traffic.
It actually reminds me of high-frequency trading in finance.
Oh, how so?
Well, those algorithms buy and sell stocks in fractions of a second, right? They don't actually care what the underlying company makes or does.
Right.
The commodity isn't the stock itself. The commodity is the speed of the transaction. For these digital media aggregators, the truth of the medical diagnosis was secondary to the speed of getting the keyword fall at home into their headlines before CBS or TSN did.
That is a precise analogy. The financial incentive is to be first, not to be verified.
Yeah.
The digital aggregator saw a blue-check insider tweet and recognized a competitive advantage. It demonstrates how quickly an entire news cycle can be built on an unverified foundation just to satisfy consumer demand for immediate answers.
Right, we want the answer now, and this rush to build a satisfying, easily digestible narrative doesn't just happen in the chaotic hours after a tragedy.
No, it happens with the whole legacy.
Exactly. When you look at how these sources summarize his entire life, you see the exact same machinery at work. The media is incredibly adept at smoothing over the complicated, contradictory reality of a person's life to construct a flawless myth.
They really are.
When you read the obituaries in our stack, they paint this monolithic picture of Stacey King as a legendary Chicago Bulls titan on the basketball court.
A giant.
But when you look at the raw data, the reality of his playing career is deeply complicated.
Yeah, the obituaries heavily emphasize two specific phases of his life: his phenomenal college career and his championship rings.
Right.
And to be clear, the college pedigree is undeniable. Under Coach Billy Tubbs at the University of Oklahoma, King was a dominant force.
Oh, absolutely.
The sources show that in 1989, he was the Big 8 Player of the Year, the Sporting News Player of the Year, and a consensus first-team All-American.
Yeah.
He was averaging 26 points, 10.1 rebounds, and 2.3 blocks per game.
I mean, those are absolute superstar numbers.
You really are, which
Yeah.
is exactly why the Bulls drafted him 6th overall in 1989.
Makes sense.
But this is where the curated narrative of the obituaries diverges from the statistical reality.
Right.
The transition to the NBA was jarring. Across his professional career, that 26-point average plummeted. He became a bench player, averaging just 6.4 points and 3.3 rebounds a game.
Wow, 6.4 points. That's a massive drop-off for a lottery pick.
Significant drop-off.
Yet, the mainstream Chicago eulogies loudly trumpet his 3 rings alongside Michael Jordan from 1991 to 1993, while conveniently glossing over the friction of his career.
They really do.
They don't dwell on the fact that the Bulls eventually traded him to the Minnesota Timberwolves for Luke Longley.
No, and the sources omit almost his entire subsequent journeyman years. After Chicago, he didn't just quietly retire. He bounced around the league trying to find a foothold.
Right.
He played for the Timberwolves, the Heat, the Celtics, the Mavericks. He went overseas to play in Italy, Turkey, and Argentina.
And didn't he coach in the CBA?
He did. He ended up coaching the CBA's Rockford Lightning. Furthermore, according to the Air Jordan Chronicles source in our stack, his statistically best NBA game wasn't even in a Bulls uniform.
Wait, really?
Yes. It happened in Minnesota in 1994, playing against the Houston Rockets.
Huh.
He put up 19 points, 13 rebounds, and 7 blocks, resulting in a career-high 32 player efficiency rating.
Wow.
But you will not find that Minnesota game mentioned in the Chicago-centric legacy pieces.
So why the historical amnesia? Why do all these sources collectively agree to ignore his best game in his years overseas?
It's driven by a psychological mechanism known as the halo effect.
Okay, the halo effect.
Yeah, in sports media, proximity to greatness often elevates a player's perceived individual legacy. Because King stood next to Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen on championship podiums, the human brain associates him with that pinnacle of success.
Right.
It's cognitive ease. Fans want a cohesive story of a hometown hero who conquered the world, not a complicated story of a lottery pick who struggled to stay in a rotation and spent years riding buses in the CBA.
So the media actively curates his legacy to fit the comforting halo of the Jordan era.
Precisely.
I mean, I understand the psychology of the halo effect, but I fundamentally disagree with using his statistics to diminish his playing legacy.
Really? How so?
You're analyzing his career through a purely clinical lens, and I think that misses the reality of team dynamics.
Okay.
Think of it like being the rhythm guitarist for the Beatles.
The rhythm guitarist.
Yeah. You might not be Paul McCartney, you might not be writing the #1 hits or taking the solos, but you are still standing on that stage, making the music happen, and surviving the unimaginable pressure cooker of that environment.
That implies his role was foundational to the success, regardless of the individual metrics.
Exactly. Surviving on a Phil Jackson championship roster is an achievement in itself. You have to practice against Michael Jordan every single day.
That's true. The practices were legendary.
Right. That requires immense talent, physical endurance, and serious mental fortitude. According to the sources, he played all 82 games his rookie year on a team that was destined for historical greatness. We shouldn't penalize role players in the history books just because they weren't the generational superstar. A ring is a ring.
Your analogy highlights the exact tension in these documents, though.
Yeah,
There is inherent, massive value in being the rhythm guitarist.
definitely.
But our job is to examine how the story is being told. The media actively chooses to emphasize the Beatles analogy while entirely erasing his time playing solo gigs in dive bars in Turkey and Argentina.
Yeah, that's fair.
They aren't lying about his championships. They're simply filtering the narrative to ensure the myth outshines the friction.
That is the perfect way to phrase it. The narrative is heavily filtered for the consumer's comfort.
Always.
But what is truly fascinating about Stacey King is that while his on-court production had to be filtered by the media to make him a legend, he didn't need any filters for his second act.
No, he didn't.
He constructed his own undeniable icon status, not as a player, but behind the microphone.
And this brings us to the most revealing aspect of our source material. We need to analyze how local sports broadcasting fundamentally relies on and actively rewards heavy bias.
For 2 decades, Stacey King was the color commentator and the undeniable voice of the Bulls.
Yeah.
He won Emmy Awards for his work. And it wasn't an accident. The sources note he was a journalism major at Oklahoma. He understood media. He knew exactly what he was doing.
He was brilliant at it.
And what he did was engineer a unique lexicon for an entire generation of fans. He invented catchphrases that defined the viewing experience.
Oh, the catchphrases.
Right. Yelling, "Give me the hot sauce" when a player hit a three-pointer. Branding Derrick Rose the Windy City Assassin. Nicknaming rookie Matas Buzelis Lil Boozy Vert.
If we look closely at the live television transcript from the Chicago Sports Network on the day he passed, we see the mechanics of this broadcast style laid bare.
Yeah, the Chuck Garfian clip.
Exactly. Chuck Garfian, a longtime colleague of King's, delivered a deeply emotional tribute on air. But nestled within that tribute is a remarkable, explicit admission about the nature of their industry. Garfian compares King to the legendary White Sox announcer Hawk Harrelson, specifically highlighting their shared bias.
I actually have that exact quote from the transcript right here.
Oh.
Garfian says, regarding King's sheer passion on air, the homerism, which is, in my opinion, a compliment. He cared about Bulls wins just like you did.
See, as investigators analyzing media, we are trained to view objectivity, neutrality, and emotional distance as the gold standards of broadcasting.
Right, like a news anchor.
But this transcript proves that regional sports networks are built on the exact opposite foundation. Homerism isn't a lapse in professional judgment. It is the core product.
The feature, not the bug.
Exactly. The media executives and peers quoted in these sources do not value King for impartial, rigorous clinical analysis of a tick-and-roll defense. They value him precisely because he operated as a surrogate fan.
So why does a network financially benefit from broadcasting blatant bias? Like, why is homerism a compliment?
Because of the grueling economics of an 82-game NBA season.
Yeah.
A team is going to have losing streaks. They're going to have rebuilding years where the on-court product is objectively terrible.
Like the post-Jordan years.
Right. If a broadcaster acts as a clinical, objective journalist during a 20-point blowout loss, the viewer changes the channel. Ad revenue drops.
Makes sense.
But if the broadcaster provides an emotional anchor, if they mirror the fans' frustration, celebrate the minor victories with infectious enthusiasm, and create a parasocial relationship, the viewer stays engaged. King insulated the broadcast against the team's poor performance by making himself the entertainment.
He was selling a shared emotional experience, not an objective reality.
Precisely.
In fact, there is a quote from his own podcast just weeks before he died that perfectly captures this strategy. He said, "One thing I've always tried was if you couldn't come to a Bulls game, you're entertained on TV."
That single sentence unlocks his entire broadcast philosophy. He wasn't trying to be an impartial judge presiding over a game. He was trying to be the ultimate host of a party.
Right.
The bias, the unapologetic homerism, was the exact mechanism he used to keep the audience emotionally invested.
It makes complete sense when you think about how we actually consume entertainment. If we know he is essentially a cheerleader with a microphone, does that make him a less reliable narrator for the fans sitting at home?
Probably.
Maybe. But think about watching a movie with a friend who is absolutely obsessed with the director.
Okay, yeah.
You know going into it that their review of the film is completely biased. They are going to ignore the massive plot holes. They are going to overpraise the cinematography.
Right.
But their pure infectious enthusiasm actually makes sitting on the couch and watching that movie a vastly better experience for you. You aren't watching for a critical takedown. You are watching to share in their joy.
That is a brilliant framework. You're opting into the bias because the bias is fun. And doing that successfully for 2 decades requires immense skill.
Absolutely.
King managed to navigate a career arc from carrying the crushing expectations of a sixth overall draft pick, to surviving the grueling reality of being an NBA journeyman, to ultimately cementing a bulletproof legacy by understanding exactly what the consumer needed.
An enthusiastic friend watching the game alongside them.
Exactly.
Well, we have covered a tremendous amount of ground navigating these documents today.
We really have.
We started by looking at the conflicting reports of his tragic passing, exposing how the digital media economy's desperate need for speed and clicks can manufacture a medical consensus out of a single, unverified tweet.
Right. We then explored the statistical reality of his playing days versus the polished myth of his legacy. We examined how the psychological halo effect allows the media to smooth over the rough patches of a career, offering fans a simplified monolithic hero rather than a complicated reality.
And finally, we dissected the intentional, highly lucrative bias of local sports broadcasting, revealing why unapologetic homerism is considered the highest possible compliment for a regional announcer.
Yeah.
The central thread connecting all of these sources is the media's profound ability to construct reality for the consumer's comfort. So when you are reading a glowing obituary or scrolling past a breaking news headline or watching a live game recap, actively look for the framing.
Always.
Recognize the massive gulf between objective reality and a narrative that has been custom-built to keep you engaged.
It requires an active, skeptical mindset. You must continually ask, who is telling this story? What are their financial or emotional incentives? And most importantly, what friction are they choosing to leave out?
Which brings us to one final lingering question derived from our source material today.
Okay.
Buried in an article from the Hindustan Times, far away from the Chicago sports blogs, we find the quiet details of his private life.
The human side.
Yes. The sources note that King is survived by his wife of 9 years, Debbie, who was photographed on their wedding day by Kenny Kim. He is survived by his 4 sons, Eric, Garrett, Brandon, and Mason.
Wow.
The sources even highlight a deeply touching Instagram post he recently made honoring his late mother.
These are the profound, foundational elements of a real human life, existing far outside the broadcast booth.
Exactly. Yet, the overwhelming narrative across all these documents, across all the mainstream obituaries and emotional television tributes, isn't really about his family's staggering loss.
No, it's not.
The narrative is almost entirely dedicated to his relationship with the fans and the city of Chicago. And it makes you wonder, when a highly visible, beloved public figure passes away, who truly owns their memory?
That's a heavy question.
Is it the family who knew the quiet man behind closed doors, navigating the real, untelevised friction of daily life? Or is it the millions of strangers who feel a deep parasocial ownership over the booming, polished voice shouting, "Give me the hot sauce," through their television screens?
Yeah.
We started this deep dive by talking about how an obituary strips away the rough edges to present a perfect highlight reel. Perhaps the real Stacey King isn't found in the sanitized obituaries or the viral catchphrases at all, but in the quiet, private spaces those cameras were never allowed to capture.
Something to think about.
Definitely something to think about.